back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys, so I'm here today to do 2 book reviews of 2 book 2s in a series, if that makes sense. 2 sequels to the first book. The 2 books I'm going to review for you today are Arm of the Sphinx, which is by Josiah Bancroft, and Prince of the Spear, which is by David Hare. This one is the second one in the Books of Babel series, and this one is the second one in the Sun Surge Quartet series. So, I believe there are due to be 3 books in this series, but correct me if I'm wrong, and this is the second one. So I thought it was going to continue in a similar vein to Senlin Ascends, which is the first, but actually it takes a very different track. And we follow the main character, Thomas Mudd, as he mounts an airship and takes over, starts crewing it, starts learning the way of the skies, and basically turns almost into a pirate, which I wasn't expecting. I definitely found that Thomas Mudd was a good character to follow. He has some inner demons that he's battling with throughout the book, and I really enjoyed the way that it kind of dealt with that. I feel like there were some good scenes where he was debating his morality and debating personality and what he was able to accomplish with this inner demon kind of berating and taking over his mind. That's not the main point of this book, and in fact we are still focusing on the Tower of Babel, despite the fact that we are now outside it and in an airship we are kind of circling around it. We do end up going back into the tower and seeing some of the other levels and some other people in this particular volume. We follow some people on the crew alongside Thomas Mudd. We have a lady who has a metal arm, we have people who are brute enforcers, we have kids who have kind of sneaked on board, and there's a lot of craziness that happens on their adventure. Some of them have drama of their own that they bring onto the airship, and others kind of find drama on the airship and make things worse. But I think it gives a really entertaining vibe to the story, and I really enjoyed it as a sequel. I don't want to go too much into detail on this one because it is a sequel, so suffice it to say that I did enjoy it. It wasn't quite what I expected it to be. It took some different turns, and I liked that. It felt refreshing and interesting. The writing that this author does is very classical in tone. It feels quite slow at start, but then it builds up as the story goes on, and I feel like the second half is always stronger. I really enjoyed it as a whole. I felt like the adventure was solid, and I'm still completely baffled as to where this is going and where it's all going to end up in book number 3, because there are so many things that just, they almost make sense, but they don't quite to me yet, and I think they're going to come together in book number 3. So I'm really looking forward to that. I ended up giving this a solid 4 stars, and I enjoyed seeing the Sphinx and Edith and learning a bit more about their stories as we went on. Moving on to Prince of the Spear. This one is the second one in the Sun Surge Quartet. It follows on from Empress of the Fall, and I didn't love Empress of the Fall as much as I thought. Basically, this is set in the same world as the Moontide Quartet by this author. I've read the Moontide Quartet, I loved the Moontide Quartet, but I found the first one of that a little bit more of a struggle, and I found the first one in this series a little bit more of a struggle. This series is set after the events of the Moontide Quartet, so it does spoil that series. If you want to read his work, I would definitely say start with Moontide, but if you've read that and you want to go on to Sun Surge, feel free. It definitely has some interesting continuations of threads and characters that we saw in the first series. Particularly, we get an overview of the world, I feel like. What I like about David Hare's writing is that he does a really good job of doing a Eastern and Western blend of epic fantasy. We don't just get old castles, it's a lot more of a blend between the two cultures of our world, inspired and meshed in various ways. And he focuses on a continent where there are 2 lands, East and West, and they are called Euros and Antiopeia, and they hate each other. Basically, Euros is the west, Antiopeia is the east, and every so often there is a moontide where there is a bridge that they can cross, and they always go to war, and then we have a sun surge after that. So the Moontide Quartet focuses on the Moontide years, and the Sun Surge Quartet focuses on the Sun Surge years. In the first book, we followed a lot of different characters, many of whom are once again in this book, but some of the key characters included the Empress, and she is called Lyra. Lyra is a really annoying character in book number 1, and she was a major reason that I found book number 1 to be a bit irritating and not quite as good as I hoped.
I did think that she got better in this book. That does not mean that I like her still. She still irritates me. There are some things I really like about her, but she is quite young, she's quite naive, she has an empire to rule, and she gets sucked into things very easily. Someone needs to shake her a little bit of sense because she irritates me so much. But with that being said, I do think she grows in this story, and I think that her plotline develops and we get to see a lot more of her taking a bit of her own initiative and not just relying on those around her. So I really enjoyed that element. We also get to see other characters in her empire, including Rill, who is her husband, and Ostavan, who is a priest. They are all kind of trying to work together to fix an empire that is kind of crumbling around them. And Lyra is obviously the leader, but these two are very much involved in the politics and hopefully making things come back together again and making everything in the world right, because there's a lot that needs to be fixed. I will say that in this book I feel like most of the leading ladies played a fairly passive or subjugated role. They didn't really take an awful lot of initiative. There are some who are a bit more resourceful, but not a lot of them, if that makes sense. I would like to see them take a bit more of a forefront position in the later books in the series. That would be great. We also have Kirik and Valdir. They are brothers and they are on a mission to try and reclaim their birthright. They also have been uniting various clans in their world to try and claim this birthright back with, and they've done things that is completely unprecedented. Clans that have fought each other for millennium are now working together under their rule, and there are various reasons why, but a lot of it comes down to magic, and I really like the two of them. I actually find their story is one of my most intriguing ones. I definitely like the camaraderie that they had and the way that it's fracturing because of the stresses around them. I think it definitely makes sense, and I really like how they are playing off one another. We then also have Wakar, Karita and Jayana, and they are all kind of on the other side. They are all working against one of the people who is from the other side. They do not like him. He is called Rashid, and they are secretly trying to undermine his authority in his warband. Behind the scenes of all of this, we also have the masked cabal, and there are various people who have masks and are very conniving, definitely doing naughty things behind the scenes to mess up the balance of this world, and I really enjoy that concept. I think it's very similar to a concept in the Game of Thrones books where they have masks and stuff and they do killings. I can't quite remember the name of them. You guys probably know better than me, but yeah, if you remember what I'm talking about, it's similar to that. We also have two types of magic that get a lot more interesting in this book. We have heard of them in previous ones, but we didn't really get an insight, and I feel like this book gives us a lot more insight into the magic of Dwymancers and Pandomancers. We also get to see constructs, which are illegal magic made creatures that are originally made to do your bidding but then can become too powerful, and we see some of them in this story as well. Overall, I think the action of this book got more intense, the characters got fleshed out more, the world was developed, and the magic was also improved upon from the previous book, so it was a very positive read for me, and I enjoyed this far more than I enjoyed the first one. I ended up also giving this a solid 4 stars, and I would definitely recommend the series if you can sort of slog your way a little bit through the first and then get to this. I did like the first. I'm making it out worse than it is. I liked it, it just isn't as good as the second. But I think that's the case with both of his series so far. So I'm hoping that the third and fourth in this quartet will be really good, as they were in the Moontide quartet. Those are my thoughts on those two books. Do let me know if you've read them or if you plan to. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.